notes. Okay, these are our angle notes continued. I still have quite a bit of talking that is not making me happy. Okay, we're on to the back of the paper. Here's some vocabulary words for you. If two angles share a side, that is known as adjacent angles. Have you guys heard the word adjacent before? The word adjacent means next to. For example, Alexis is next to, Alex is next to Alejandro, right? So when two things are next to each other, or you have a house that is probably next to someone else's house, or an apartment that is next to someone else's apartment, those are called adjacent. I'm going to start using names. Brendan, be quiet. Okay, if two angles share a side, they're called adjacent. Then the sum of the two, oh, you know what? It was actually supposed to be measure. I messed up. Then the measures of the two adjacent angles add up to the measure of the whole big angle. So this little measurement here plus this little measurement here will add up to this entire measurement here. No. Okay? So the measurement of angle ABC plus the measurement of angle CBD will add up to the measurement, M, of ABD. Do you see why in this picture we can't just call our angles angle B? What's wrong with just calling our angles angle B in this picture? Yeah, we won't know which angle we're talking about because there are three angles that all have the same vertex B. So we have to use three letters so that we know we're talking about this angle, and then we're talking about that angle, and then we're talking about this whole big angle, okay? Let's do a little example. I'm going to just write it in here. Example. If angle ABC equals, well, we could measure it, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to guess. How about 40 degrees? And the measure of angle ABD is 70 degrees. What is the measure of angle CBD? Okay, if you want to, you can actually write the numbers in the picture to help you. So angle ABC is 40. Should I help myself by writing that number in the corner of the angle maybe? Let's do that. 40 degrees there. Angle ABD is 70. Guess which angle is ABD? The entire thing. Can I write that in the corner? No, not very well, because there's already two angles in the corner. So sometimes I'll just like kind of make a mark and say that whole thing is 70 degrees. That just kind of tells me that I'm talking about the whole thing. What is the measure of angle CBD? So that would be this one right here. How do I figure it out? We just got done saying that this angle plus this angle equals that angle. So let's call this one angle X. So we could say we have 40 degrees plus X degrees equals 70 degrees. So what would X have to be?
30.
X would have to be 30 degrees. Does that make sense? Good. Okay, linear pair. Here's another vocabulary word. A linear pair is two angles that are adjacent, so they share a side, they're next to each other, and they form a straight line. That's where we get the word linear from. Straight line is linear, and the word pair means two. So linear pair, a line of two angles. If they make a straight line, they're always going to add up to 180 degrees. Let's look at some examples. There's a straight angle. Now I'm going to split it into two angles. If that angle is 140 and that angle is 40, is that a linear pair? Yes, it is. What does that linear pair, what do the two angles add up to? 180 degrees. Let's do another one, and this time we're going to solve something. If this is 65 degrees, and we want to find this one, and notice how this forms a straight line, how can we find x? How did you do that? 180 subtract the 65 equals 115 degrees for the other angle. This is a property that we will be using all year. Every single chapter that we get to has this in it. Please don't ever forget that two angles on a straight line, two adjacent angles forming a straight line, which is called a linear pair, always add up to 180 degrees. That's a big, important thing to remember. Okay. Congruent angles. What do you think congruent angles are?
Equal.
Congruent angles are angles with the same measure. Do these two angles look like they could be congruent?
Yeah.
This one, the sides are longer than that one. Aha, good answer. The sides are different lengths. However, the angle, how far open the rays are, how far apart the rays are from each other, our angle measurement is the same, or it should be. Okay? In order to show that they are the same, we put little arcs in our drawing. So the arcs mean the angles are congruent, or their measurements are equal. Okay? So if this was angle J and this was angle K, what could we say about angle J and angle K? We could say that they are congruent. Do you remember this little symbol that means congruent? If you've forgotten it, write it down and don't forget. That's the symbol for congruent. That means congruent. Okay? So if these two angles are congruent, we can say angle J is congruent to angle K. What if instead we were talking about the measurements of the angle? What about the measurement of angle J and the measurement of angle K? Would that also be a congruent symbol in there? Measurement means we're talking about the number.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about the measurement of angle J, we would have a number, and the measurement of angle K, we would have a number. Do we use congruent when we're just dealing with numbers?
Equals.
We just simply use equals. You guys need to kind of understand the difference between when you use congruent and when you use equal. Congruent is objects, and equal is numbers. Numbers are equal, objects are congruent. Okay? You need to try and get the hang of that because it's a little notation thing that can be confusing in geometry. Okay, we have one more example and then you will have time to work on your assignment.
Oh, snap.
Okay, example. The measure of angle AOB is 4x minus 2. As I'm reading the problem, I like to draw a picture on my paper and then put the information into the picture so I can see what's happening. Right now, I've already put the picture there for you, so we can just write on it. But please don't write in your book, right? So draw the picture on your paper, on your homework. Okay, so measure of angle AOB is 4x minus 2. How can an angle be 4x minus 2? Shouldn't it be a number instead?
You could solve.
Doesn't that represent a number? Because we don't know what x is?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So 4x minus 2 represents a number that we don't know. The measure, so technically that should say degrees because it's a measurement. Okay. The measure of angle BOC, so BOC in here, is 5x plus 10 degrees. The measure of angle COD is 2x plus 14 degrees. Look at our picture. What do these two little arcs in our picture mean?
Oh, that's congruent.
That means that this angle is equal to that angle, right? How can we find x since we know that that angle and that angle are congruent? Okay, so we need to notice from the picture, you don't have to write every little thing down that I'm writing down, but I just want to make sure it's clear on the video. Notice from the picture that angle AOB is congruent to angle COD. So that means their measurements are equal. So we can take the measurement of AOB, which is 4x minus 2, and set it equal to the measurement for COD, which is 2x plus 14. That now gives us an algebra problem to solve. Did we use this part at all?
No,
No, we didn't. How come they told us what it was?
because they want us to figure it out.
And it's actually going, yeah, no, not because they want you to figure it out. They just gave you that information. Do you even need that information?
No.
No, you don't. It's extra information that you don't need. Angle, so I don't know how to tell that. Maybe we should just write it here. This is extra info not needed. I know that's sometimes confusing on an assignment when that happens because you think you need to use everything that they give you when you don't really need to use everything. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this. How do we solve this algebra problem? Subtract the 2x. What's 4x minus 2x? 2x, and this one over here cancels out. Now what do we do? What's the next step? Eddie, what do we do next? What do we do next? Good, good save. So 2x equals 16. Now what? Now we divide both sides by 2, so x equals 8. What are the questions I'm trying to answer? What is the value of x? Did I answer that question? Yes, I did. Okay. What is the measure of angle AOB? So AOB was 4x minus 2, which was just representing the actual number. How can we now find the actual number? The measure of angle AOB was 4x minus 2. So that means we can take the 8 and plug it in. 4 times 8 minus 2, which would be 32 minus 2, which means the angle is 30 degrees. Now, if you were to, yes, good job, Alex. If you were to actually measure that angle with a protractor, do you think it's actually 30 degrees? I really have no idea if it is or not, and I'm the one who created the angle. So, why would I create an angle that's 30 degrees without using a protractor to make sure it's 30 degrees? We're just doing algebra with this picture. We're not using the picture to actually measure with a protractor. Notice the note at the bottom of my page here. Note, in most pictures in the book and on my notes, angles are not drawn accurately. Unless a problem says to measure it with a protractor, you should use the information in the problem to figure it out without using a protractor. Notice how we did this problem, and we also did this problem without using a protractor because it was not drawn exactly right. It was just given information that you did without a protractor. Okay? So be careful of that. Most of the time, yes. Unless the problem says measure it with a protractor, you should not. Okay. All right, we are finished.